Carson Price for Thursday, December 12th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee. In this show, a presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets, so whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Sakaris alongside Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things. Big show coming up as the Vancouver Canucks prepare for the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers at Rogers Arena, the fourth game of a six-game homestand, and the return of JT Miller, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. And spurred on by a lot of the commentary that we've seen from Canucks fans, heard back in our feedback, seen in our feedback channels, about the Canucks' home record, which is quite poor, 4 wins in 14 games, but also the style of play. Have you been entertained by the Canucks this season? You can vote yes, no, or periodically. Do so at the Sakaris Price X and YouTube channels. I ask you, Blake Price, are you not entertained?
I'll say periodically there have been spikes, but definitely not as a blanket statement. Mm-hmm. Like this time last year, it would have been 95-5, this question. Mm-hmm. I think they've had moments of entertainment. They still have a penchant for late drama. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole yet. 6-on-5 in the last 2 years. This team has to be near the top.
Amazing 6-on-5.
Like they really are. And so they're never out of close games. So I'll give them credit for sticking with that. Their goaltending has been very good throughout the course of the season. So, and that's in the wake of no Demko even. So there have been moments. But no, would I qualify them as an entertaining team? No, I wouldn't say that either.
I was somewhere between yes and periodically. I voted periodically, but I considered voting yes on terms of a long-term, broader view that, okay, the home record isn't great. If I was a season ticket subscriber, I could understand voting no here. And needless to say, not as much fun as last year. There are some that would quibble with Tocchet's system, that it's not high-flying, freewheeling hockey, right? And that dulls the game down a little bit. The broader view is, think of what we have been exposed to for the better part of a decade here. It's certainly more entertaining than that. This isn't the heyday of 2011. Of that, there is no doubt. But I actually think the NHL product has improved writ large a great deal since then, Blake. Pretty much everyone in the league now can skate and play with the puck. So on that macro level, yes. In the specifics of this Canucks example, I voted periodically. It's lease month at Surrey Mitsubishi. Where? Leasing a car, better option, lower monthly payments, flexibility to drive a new vehicle every few years, the convenience of staying under warranty, and no maintenance costs, minimal maintenance costs. You can avoid the long-term commitment of ownership and the depreciation, of course. This month at Surrey Mitsubishi, the PHEV 2024, the Outlander Hybrid, $182 a week. If you want the gas option, it's $105 a week. The Eclipse Cross, $100 a week, in the RVR, only $87 a week. Plus, get away with $1,000 winter tire credit, no charge maintenance, plus that $5,000 government rebate. Get it while it lasts on the Outlander PHEV. See dealer for details and term. All leases OAC. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey, or surreymitsubishi.ca.
We should mention, this is intentional. The way that it is being played, the Canucks are playing their coach's system. And so, by the way, for anybody that ripped, and I saw a lot of this late last year about the way the LA Kings were playing, making fun, teasing the Kings, and how they're, hearkening back to the dark ages. Canucks aren't playing a 1-3-1, but they are playing an intentionally dumbed down defensive system that removes a lot of the ability to play offensively right now.
Okay, so I would push back on that a little bit, and we had a good debate on this yesterday. Got a lot of nice comments on yesterday's show in terms of what was discussed and the different opinions and viewpoints presented. They are not playing a horrific defensive system like the Kings.
No, as I said.
Yes, but but
it is a system that is creating this lack of offense. It is a choice.
Yes, but most traps and defensive systems that dumb the game down and make it boring, it's because there's a lack of puck possession. Puck possession is not the issue with the Vancouver Canucks. They have the fair share of the puck. It's that they are more deliberate in surrendering possession of that puck, i.e. shooting the puck on goal or towards goal. And so that is what is keep. Remember, he preaches puck possession as a defensive philosophy, not necessarily as an offensive philosophy.
Okay, well,
his view is if we have the scoring instrument, it means they don't, and that means they are less likely to score.
Matt,
so he's instructing his players to hold possession of the puck in the offensive zone. Yes, it means fewer chances. Yes, it means very little off the rush, and we discussed not having the defenseman to be able to trigger.
You're ignoring the other half of the game. You are talking about when Quinn Hughes is on the ice. That's when puck possession becomes king. That's when they're in the offensive zone employing Sedin defense of you're
fair
180 feet away from the other net.
If you want to splice it a little thinner, Blake, and do it with
Quinn
or without Quinn, then you're right. Then I will concede.
But it's not splicing it thin. Quinn can only be out there for so long. So when Quinn is not out there, half the game in the most extreme conditions.
Okay.
So you've still
more than half the game.
You have 35 other minutes of the game where you're being caved and you're hanging on and relying on Kevin Lankinen. That's what I'm seeing. And that's what the stats
and you're not wrong. And you're not wrong. I will tell you you're right. I just want to draw the distinction between the trap game that so infected hockey in those years of the dead puck era and the Kings example from last year as being materially different than what Tocchet plays.
No, I just brought that up.
We can agree on that.
I brought that up is that, again, it's not by accident. It's not they're struggling. This is all by choice. They're not struggling offensively. This is how they're being told to play.
Yeah. They are banking on converting a higher percentage of fewer chances than the next team.
They are amongst the lowest event, if not the lowest event team in the league right now. Offensively and defensively. So it's to some degree working.
Our top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. JT Miller returns second straight big return game for a Canucks star after Thatcher Demko on Tuesday night against St. Louis. The Canucks go 5-3-2 in his absence. He misses 10 games. He did meet the media this morning, and as it was predictable that he was not going to get into details about his 3+ week absence. Here's JT.
Real quick, I just want to say something. I am playing tonight, and I really would appreciate if we just stayed away from the reasons why I wasn't here from all of you guys. You can ask all you want, but I'm not going to dive into the reasons why I wasn't here the last 3-4 weeks. So I'm here, I'm with the team, and I am ready to look forward to what's going to happen in the future, not necessarily what has happened in the past. So I know you guys are going to ask no matter what, but I'm just going to say I'm not talking about it, but I just want to let you guys know ahead of time.
How are you doing now?
Yeah, I'm excited to play. I want to play, and obviously fun game to play against the defending champions. So just happy to be around the guys and looking forward to tonight.
What have you seen out of this team since you took a step back?
Finding ways to win, getting contributions from a lot of different guys. Obviously with myself and Phil and Demmer and having some injuries, there's been guys that have stepped up, and it's been nice to see. I mean, it was a heck of a road trip by those guys. It's a lot of travel, a lot of games, and come back home and get a couple points has been nice. So obviously we're just trying to. It's been good, but we got a hard schedule the next week. So.
How tough has it been to be away?
Yeah, it sucks. No matter what it's for. This is the family away from family here, and you miss the guys, and just excited to be around them and get back and compete.
How about the support you've received just from the organization, management, players, all of them?
Yeah, I've been a lot from everybody, my agent, my family, and then obviously the guys here. Everybody's been awesome.
How about the fans? We've heard your name chanted at games and even at a wrestling event that was here a few weeks ago.
I'm pretty out of the loop on it, but whatever it was, I appreciate it.
You've been durable in your time here. You haven't missed much game action. It's going to be like riding a bike, just jump back in here midstream tonight?
Yeah, I hope so. But obviously, I'm sure rest is expected. I think this weekend's 4 weeks, so I mean, it's going to be try to keep it easy on myself, play my game, try to make it, like I said, just literally try to make it easy on myself. Try to keep it simple, try to play physical, things that I can control.
When did you know this was going to be the game?
Pretty much yesterday.
How about the test against the defending champs for the group tonight?
Yeah, for the group, it's a great test. It's going to be a fun game. Obviously, I think the building's going to be awesome, and we know what to expect from them. So, but I think it's important we just worry about ourselves and go. And we know when we do that, we give ourselves a chance against anybody.
What does it mean to be out there with Demko again?
Yeah, it's cool. I admire what he's been able to accomplish and overcome, and for him to be out there and being able to watch him last game, it's pretty special. I know it meant a lot to him, and it meant a lot to the guys to see him back there. It's awesome.
You've always been an emotional player, and you kind of brought that edge to this team. Given what has happened, whatever that may be, do you expect to be that same player?
I told you I wasn't. I mean, I feel like we're toting the line here with that question, so I'm just not going to dive into it.
Did you do a lot of working out right from the time you went left the team? Have you been physically trying to stay in shape?
Yeah, I take care of myself.
Did you watch games closely, or like when you were away, or was being away, like getting away from the game entirely?
A little bit of both, yeah.
Thanks, Melvin.
I thought it was a little odd that he didn't answer the question about being the same emotional player.
Yeah, it wasn't about what happened at all. I don't know if he got confused by the question, or
maybe he disliked the premise for Hunt saying, with whatever you've been through. So, maybe that in and of itself made him disengaged in the question.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't think he listened to the actual question.
Well, and I also wonder if the word emotional was a trigger there as well. Let's remember, he was benched when last we saw him by Rick Tocchet. I can't imagine that went over well. And I thought it was also an interesting answer that he said a little bit of both. When J-Pat asked him about have you been watching games closely or did stepping away mean fully disengaging from hockey, it sounds to me like maybe the initial plan was to completely disengage, but he just couldn't help himself. He had to watch his guys. For the most part, these were road games too, right? 6 of the 10 that he missed.
Well, he wasn't completely detached from society either. Like we heard reports from listeners and partners that he was spotted out having dinner.
He was out having dinner, Lower Lonsdale.
If he's out in the society, fans are gonna recognize him and gonna say, "Hey, did you see they won last night?" Like, hey, by osmosis, you're gonna be told.
I know his families are members at Hollyburn, and understand he was there as well. So yeah. So 5-3-2 without him. Atu Ratu, we anticipate, is going to make way for Miller, and Pius Suter is going to play down the middle for the Vancouver Canucks. But before we bring Patrick Johnston in, who's standing by at Rogers Arena, Kevin Lankinen starts incidentally as well, because we weren't expecting Demko to go back-to-back here in these early days. And much like Thatcher Demko, JT sort of downplayed expectations for tonight, saying he expected there would be some rust, and I think that's infinitely fair. But the lineup decision we have to discuss, and we're going to put this question to PJ here. Still no Eric Brannström. You watch a game like that Tuesday against the St. Louis Blues, where you have massive difficulties transporting the puck, and yet Coach Tocchet is going to be stubborn on this one and scratch Brannström again. to go with a Forbort-Friedman pairing. I guess it's Hughes with Juleson and Soucy with Desharnais.
No, Soucy Myers.
Oh, sorry, Soucy Myers and Quinn with.
Well, it'd be Juleson or Myers will be either in the first or second slot.
So
and then
Quinn, Myers, Soucy,
Yeah.
Juleson. Yeah. Okay. My bad. Thank you. I got to say, quite surprised.
As you always say, Matt, as you always say, like game to game, once in a while, does a coach have it within his right to give a guy a healthy scratch? Sure.
I always
absolutely.
say I will back a coach with a healthy scratching the first time. That we don't know what else is going on there, and that you have to give that tool, that lever, to your head coach. Also, because if you healthy scratch a guy once, you're able to, there's no asset value lost or anything like that. You're able to frame it in a, hey, what do they always say? Hey, take a step back, get a look at the game, recharge, reset, whatever terms they want to use.
Mm-hmm.
That makes infinite sense to me. I agree with you that when you continue to healthy scratch a player who is better than the next guy or does things differently than the next guy that you need in your game, then it becomes a nose to spite your face thing. And so I got to say I'm very surprised to see this, and I do sort of wonder if this is the coach messaging to his superiors that this guy ain't it. And if we are intent on improving on the blue line, it's more 2 defensemen that are needed, not 1.
So statistics are important for the reason of confirming or clarifying what your eyes tell you. So let's assume that Rick Tocchet sees something on the ice from Eric Brannström that he doesn't like. I would hope
maybe he's the guilty party, the repeat offender in terms of protecting the guts of the ice that Tocchet was talking about.
So the important thing to follow up then is, okay, is there consequence for the way that this player is playing? It doesn't necessarily need to come in the form of a goal. Just because your goaltender bails you out on a mistake that you made doesn't mean the mistake wasn't made. That's why things like Corsi and expected goals are important, because it weighs just how much activity you're allowing, not what the ultimate red light consequence is. Well, Corsi 4%, which is more about what you're doing at the offensive end of the ice. There are 3 players that are generating more than they are allowing in terms of Corsi on the team. It is who you'd expect at the top 2. It is Roenick and it is Hughes. Above 50%, more than half the time.
This is of defensemen or the whole team?
Of the defensemen. But it's a pretty limited group as a whole. There's only 12 guys on the team that are above 50%, period, on the team. 3 defensemen. Hughes, Roenick, and Brannström. Do you know where 4th place is on that? Is he winning by like a percentage point? 6% back. Like, it's a huge drop-off.
Yeah.
Expected goals weighs where those guys are on the ice. So it's a little bit more detailed. There are 3 guys there. Hughes, Roenick, Brannström, and again, a massive drop-off. And that weighs in how much you're allowing. That the expected goals for percentage weighs what you're creating versus what you're allowing in your own defensive zone.
Yep.
It weighs all of that. Are you worth the risk, basically? Emphatically, the stats say that Eric Brannström is worth the risk. Mm-hmm. So no matter what Rick Tocchet is seeing, there is nothing in the bottom line that supports he's too much risk. You shouldn't have him out there. And that's where I would hope that the analytics department is being tapped to say, hey, I'm a little bit worried about his defensive play. What's happening when he's out there? And the answer will come back, not much. Not much is happening. Like, in a good way. So, again, you're right about the one scratch, whatever. Mm-hmm. You want to teach a lesson, blah, 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 fine.
Yep. It's got to be a tool at the coach's disposal.
And for those
continued,
and for those that are saying it's just 6 defensemen, it's not, though. When you look at the stats, he's causing a lot less havoc and creating a lot more than every other defenseman on the team.
Okay, you're going to be challenged on this. By the way, if you're telling me 12 players and 9 forwards, it tells me the forward group's been pretty good. Got 3 decent lines.
Yeah.
Here's Patrick Johnston of the Province and Post Media, and this could get fun. He has written in our chat box, "Here I come to dunk on Blake."
Okay.
I'm a step back. You two have at it.
Blake, you're not wrong, but
Okay.
You're not as right as Patrick.
Have you looked on a per game basis, Blake? Out of the last 7 games, how many games has Erik Brannström been a positive Corsi player?
Okay, so that's fine.
One.
There's a trend downward.
And it's been a bad trend. And listen, he has been a highly effective player for the most part, but lately he hasn't been good enough. And I was surprised he's not back in. I think it is the mix. They're looking the righty-lefty. Forwards coming in. Listen, could he be back next year? But Tocchet was asked about this, and he said, listen, he hasn't been good. He's been making some mistakes. You can see it in the numbers. He's had a couple of good practices, which Rick loves to say. So at the end of the day, is this a message? I think it's entirely possible it's a message. I mean, he is, it's been obvious for a long time that this is a team that needs more on defense. I think they know they need more on defense. Derek Forbort's not the answer to that. He is going to be probably solid. I mean, in the 4 games he's played this year, he's been pretty solid. But he is not an Erik Brannström type player. And getting the puck out of the zone. I mean, that the counter to all this is that Tocchet mentioned it. Well, getting Miller back, we've lacked speed in the middle. And we'll have all our 4 centers aligned properly now, and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, they still need the puck. And Brannström has been good at that. So the solution in the end is getting, I think what it actually is getting a right shot defenseman who can move the puck, and then you're feeling comfortable with that. But of course, everybody is looking for a right shot defenseman who can move the puck.
Yeah. And that's why, again, the one, because of the trend downward, by all means, scratch him once. But are you killing yourself by not giving him the chance to bounce back? Yeah. And we'll find out tonight.
Well, and Patrick, I'm not sure you caught our interview with Frank Corrado yesterday, but obviously Frankie was, for the most part, a third-pair defenseman in the National Hockey League, and some time ago, not too long ago, but some time ago, and Frank said to us he could not believe how many times Canucks defensemen went up the boards or off the glass Tuesday night. Against
and Ray was
St.
commenting
Louis.
on it during the game.
Ray
too.
was commenting about it too. The notion being in this day and age in the NHL, you have that many defensemen whom you are so terrified of them having to move the puck, pass the puck tape to tape, that this is what you're resigned to. So we all know it's an issue, and we talked about it yesterday, Patrick. Look, if you want to say that they overextended themselves on wingers and did not address the defense as comprehensively as they needed to in the offseason, I think that's fair criticism. If you want to say that Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote were influential in the decisions to sign Vincent Desharnais and Derek Forbort, and that has contributed to the problem, I think that's fair criticism. But from now until the trade deadline, I think Patrick Allvin has to play the heavy with Tocchet and Foote and say, we are going to find at least one, if not 2, puck movers on defense. And I want to hear about how tall they are or aren't, how light they are or aren't. That's what this team needs to be successful, so we need to coach around that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. These are the guys we have. This is who we're going with. These use them as they're designed.
Correct. Brad Pitt in Moneyball to Art Howe, right? You got to play the team the way it is designed. If we don't see Hatteberg at first base here, Patrick, we got trouble.
But by the way, just so everyone knows, Carlos Pena was actually hitting pretty well that season.
Carlos Pena was a heck of a glove, too, at first base. It was a stunning trade for a guy who was vying for Rookie of the Year.
But
nevertheless.
The point was he gets on base. That was Scott Hatteberg.
Well, no, but the point is alignment. The point is alignment.
Yeah, exactly.
You as a general manager, you can defer to a coach and defer to a coach's preferences. But when the coach's preferences are not working out, that's when it's time for a difficult conversation. And I sure hope that there's a difficult conversation coming or has already transpired here in terms of the way that they have structured the defense, which may have benefits in a playoff series against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, where you're trying to occupy as much space as possible.
right,
and they may be taking the long-term view of Edmonton's our Derby, and so this has got to be the way it is. But certainly what we've seen through a third of an NHL season here is that's not good enough on a night-to-night basis to trust that you're going to be able to score enough goals and or keep the puck out of your net when you're getting hemmed in.
We may have talked to you about this already, PJ, but they're two different tournaments. The 82-game regular season is a different tournament than the playoffs, and it does feel like they constructed this roster for the playoff tournament.
Well, I know you guys talked about this earlier this week, about the system, essentially. I mean, this has been a pretty strong defensive system. This team, despite what people may believe, like in terms of goals against, chances against, shots against, everything all the metrics, this has been a very strong defensive team. But it comes back to the original point is, can you do anything when you do get the puck? And that means, obviously, Quinn Hughes playing a lot because, I mean, the guys... I'm now trying to get people to convince me why I should vote for him for the Hart. You know, my instinct, I mean, he's having a great season, right? But he's not going to be on the ice for half the game, you know? So half the game, what are you doing the rest of the time? You can't just sit back. Maybe you can do that in the playoffs, I guess, like you said. Like, there are two tournaments in play here. But you need to be able to move the puck up the ice. And right now they are missing that, whether Eric Brannström is in the lineup or not. They're still lacking in that department overall.
Fair. They miss it more when Brannström is out.
Listen, I mean, the bar is low and he adds to it, but you want to get, as I do my hands visually for people listening, doing levels. But
we've had a couple listeners bring up and said it a couple of times here over the last week, like when the Canucks struggle and you ask the right questions or you have the right debates, boy, do we have some smart hockey fans in this market who feed back. The Pittsburgh Penguins got away with what some would say were the worst two defense cores of Stanley Cup winning teams ever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like go look at the 6 defensemen the Pens played in those back-to-back Cup years.
But you're leaning on Letang, right? Like you're leaning on a good guy at the top.
Well, there you go. And there's a similarity with Hughes, and they were leaning on great goaltending. The 1 year Murray, and the next year Flower.
And 200 feet forwards.
And 200 feet forwards, and great team defense. But, we would all agree that JT Miller and Elias Pettersson are not Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin at their peak, right?
No.
So do you think Alvin and Rutherford are seeing this and ascribe to the notion they have to get better on defense? Or do you just look at an organizational philosophy that we're going to get by on defense, we're going to lean on our goaltender, and we're going to bury a high percentage of our chances because we have great forwards? Should fans start to worry that they're trying to completely facsimile the Pittsburgh model onto this Canucks team?
I would point to the fact they are accruing cap space. What are they actually accruing cap space for?
Very good.
I mean, they probably want to do two things. They do probably. I mean, Pius Suter's been great, so it's hard to say you would like to get an upgrade on him, but they looked at how things went last year. Can Pius Suter be the third part of the triple-headed center monster? I mean, like, he's playing like it. So maybe you're looking there. But realistically, that cap space, it is hard to ignore what the gap that we're just discussing is on how you could deploy that money effectively to fill that gap. And I remain convinced that the priority is to find a defenseman. To not rush into it, but to find a defenseman.
JT Miller is back. Demko's been back.
Yeah.
Dakota Joshua came back.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, in all those games, in the return games, They didn't play that great. They didn't there was no emotional lift here from the return. Like Dakota Josh was a popular guy in the room, and he's pretty emotional himself when he's out there on the ice. You would have thought that would have been something. Yeah. And Demko, after all of his struggles, back, man, he's back, and they play like that in front of him. I'm a little bit scared, honestly, as to what this team's going to do tonight.
Well, Rick Tocchet, it was funny. He mentions the role that Miller plays in getting them going early in games, but of course, he's been in the lineup when they've struggled getting going in games. But notionally, that's part of what he's saying. He said, listen, he's an emotional player. He'll help us from the front. Miller himself, of course, being careful, knowing he hasn't played in almost a month, mentioned focusing on things I can control, which I suppose if people want to read into that, they can. But more than anything, in the moment, he looks at the game tonight and says, listen, I know it's not going to go perfect because I haven't played in a while, but I am going to do my best. And the fans will certainly be into it. He downplayed it. Interesting moment of humility, to be honest, with Miller, because we asked him about, did you hear the fans chanting your name in the games? Did you hear them chanting your name during WWE? And he just said, "Oh, well, no, I'm not really sure, but whatever it was, I appreciate it." And then, but he was watching the games. He knew, he heard it. It was a moment, like I said, of humility from a player who we know how much he cares about winning and how much he cares about this team. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't read too much into how he goes tonight because of all the reasons you just mentioned, Blake. Because it's not been true for anybody else, but maybe.
Sounds like Miller, Besser, Höglander.
He's got a flair for the dramatic.
It sounds like Miller, Besser, Höglander, Pettersson, DeBrusk, and who?
I guess
Garland?
Sherwood.
Oh,
no, because you're going to keep Suter, Joshua, and Garland together.
You're not going to go Bluger, Garland, Joshua.
No, they're going, and then you'll go Bluger, Sasson, and Heine, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Marvelous stuff. Thank you for taking time
and
at
Myers,
the rink there.
By the way, guys, I forgot to mention Myers. Myers has been taking the minutes with Hughes, and Hughes actually has been pretty decent.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
It's been fine,
if we're to go back to the Corsi discussion, Myers overall, like him and Susie were terrible for a long time. Susie seems to have found his way. Myers, Hughes has actually been not too bad.
See, here's the thing. Tyler Myers has been such low event, no chaos giraffe that he slipped my mind momentarily.
Honestly, for as much as they have been not themselves from last year, those two, it's not 3 years ago, Tyler Myers.
No,
exactly.
No, it's not that. So
well,
it's been what we've been talking about, struggling to move the puck up the ice, and so now it's can they get back?
But he's actually one guy who can do it relative to the rest of this group.
It's
and the other thing is a lot of guys can look pretty good beside Quinn Hughes. So, marvelous. Thank you. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks,
Patrick
PJ.
Johnston of the Province and Postmedia joining us from Rogers Arena. What are our friends at Yellow Dog and Neighborhood up to?
They're still wanting us to remind everybody about the box of tricks mix pack that's available, because it really allows you to touch them all, if you will. The High Five.
Perfect for company. When company comes over for Christmas, what kind of beer do you fancy?
Not everybody likes a hazy. You got a hazy there, though, the High Five Hazy IPA. You got two new brews, the Wander Tropical IPA and the Liquid Neon Juicy Pale Ale. And now they've also got the Ultra Color Amber IPA that they've taken out of the Yellow Dog vault. It really does please everybody. So go get the Box of Tricks mix pack from Yellow Dog.
I prefer the straight IPA over the hazy IPA. Don't get me wrong. I love beer. I will drink a hazy IPA, but when I go IPA.
Hot day hazies are nice, but overall, you're right. Yeah.
Okay. Good discussion there. It's Besser's 500th game here tonight, everybody. And we should mention something that we did in yesterday's discussion of Besser, or was that Tuesday, and resign, coming to decision day. Patrick Alvin actually identified trade deadline as a deadline for something on Besser. He did so with E. McIntyre back in Penticton when we got this season going. So just wanted to note that. Our friend Dave Hall from Canucks Army, I thought, with a smart tweet the other day, with all three developing nicely, it may be wise to prepare yourself for the Canucks to use one of Elias Pettersson, Kirill Kudryavtsev, or Sawyer Minio as trade ships. You can only have so many young left shot defenders playing behind Quinn Hughes. Unfortunately, Minio is actually playing with Zane Perek at the World Junior Camp today. which is your offensive-minded right-shot defenseman and your more stay-at-home defensive stopper. We do anticipate Minio will make the Canadian World Junior team, although it's a good group, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah, we've been talking about Kudryavtsev and Pettersson. We talked to Cam Robinson about that Tuesday, saying could either really be a solution this year. I mean, they've played so few pro games, and he didn't think so. I think we're moving into a world, Blake, that much like with Hunter Brännström last year, who got off to that extraordinary start in the OHL, value peaked, and the Canucks said, let's move on him now. He, of course, became part of the Elias Lindholm deal. I think we're moving to that world as well. I think we're moving to a world where it's Nils Höglander and one of these defensemen, and it may take a third piece to go out and get that top four defenseman.
Yeah, and it looks great on both Kudryavtsev and Elias Pettersson that they are having success at this young age at the American League. It will dispel assumptions about European players coming to play the North American game immediately. When you're that quick a learn at the AHL, it's a really good sign. Again, it doesn't guarantee, but I think it does elevate your prospect status when you are able to adapt so quickly to the North American game. Now, Kudryavtsev played some junior here too, but yes. But the North American pro game, it's a different beast as well. And again, pretty seamless transition.
So bottom line here, and particularly once we get to the holiday freeze in a week or so, and into the new year, you were really rooting for Kirill Kudryavtsev and Elias Pettersson at Abbotsford. The more they can enhance their value here over the next month to 3 months, 2.5 months, the better the Vancouver Canucks standing is in what we anticipate is going to be a very competitive market for top four defensemen, particularly top four right shot defensemen prior to NHL trade deadline.
Would you put non-zero chance of Wieland or Lekromaki getting traded?
Non-zero, but not their preference.
Yeah. But I think
you're seeing the 2025 first-round pick moving before. I think you're seeing the 2026 first-round pick moving before.
What if one of the Buffalo defensemen is available?
Bowen Byram? Do you mean Byram or do you mean
one of this?
Well, Power or Dahlin? It's
probably
yes.
not. Probably not.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Byram is a bit more difficult because he could be a tricky contract. In the summer as an RFA with arb rights.
And again, a left shot, so he's not your perfect.
He's not perfect,
fit.
Although he's played the right side. But yes, I would, because he's a club-controlled player for, the next 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah, RFA.
So, I think you have to consider those guys. If you're hunting Byram, then I think you have to. But first things first there, you have to be convinced that Byram is your answer this year and beyond. And I think there's a pretty good case for the Cranbrook native and former Vancouver Giant that he would be part of the solution.
They remember, and before people think, are they going to make another trade? They've traded away Eichel, Reinhart, O'Reilly, Middlestat, and Ristolainen already from this group. How much more talent are they peeling off?
But it's not working, Blake.
No, I know.
It's not working. So,
and they've done pretty well in those trades, by the way.
You have
Tuck, Krebs, Thompson, Levi, Byram, all coming back in all those trades. So they've done pretty well.
Congratulations to Jana Bluger, mother of Canucks forward Teddy Bluger.
Thought we had a contest herself.
She won the 50-50 Tuesday at Rogers Arena. The reporting on this from the room this morning, talked to Taddy. Taddy said she had never played a 50-50 in her life, to his knowledge.
She's just visiting for a few days.
First time she plays one, on vacation, she wins $105K. Now you watch. The NHL is going to consider this cap circumvention because it's the Vancouver Canucks and is going to ask for a recapture penalty to be paid.
Yeah, you're paying the family.
Yeah, exactly. You rigged the 50-50 to put an extra $100K in the pocket of your fourth line centerman via his mother. That's laundering. That's a CBA violation. Here's your recapture penalty.
You'll now have $100K on the cap for the next 10 years.
And vindictively. How about this notion from former NHL scout Bernd Freimüller, confirmed by several sources. The NHL is eager to allow their players with Italian ancestors to play for Italy at the Olympics. That would mean bypassing the 16 months rule that players have to play in Italy to be eligible. Blake, Celebrini, Perfetti, Velarde.
Oh my gosh.
Vetrano, Fantilli, Ferraro, Pesci, Carlo, Mangiapane, Pinto, on and on it goes, including our old buddy Mikey DiPietro, who may make the crease for Italy. I understand what they're thinking here. Let's not embarrass the host nation who's automatically qualified in the men's hockey tournament. Let's make it more entertaining for those in the venue and those of us watching on a globally. This team could probably compete for a bronze medal. Like, what happens if they win?
But you're not
What
going
happens if they beat the Finns and the Slovaks and
first
the
of all,
Swiss?
you're not allowing this to happen for players that want to ultimately repatriate back to Canada or the United States.
So Macklin is not eligible.
Like Macklin's not going to do it.
Okay.
It'd be interesting for a guy like Shane Pinto. Like if Shane Pinto has a career year, it's possible
He could make a future U.S. team down the road, you think?
Like again, you just I think he's going to be
He's 24.
If he projects like we think, I think he becomes a Bessery kind of player who's sort of on a bubble.
Okay.
So that's where it would get interesting at that level of a player. Can you peel him off? Robert Bortuzzo, he'll go.
Yeah.
He'll go.
Yeah. Bertuzzo will go.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Mangiapane.
Marco Rossi, he's going with Switzerland.
Well, he's a Swiss.
I don't think he's going.
No. Okay. Let's get to today's menu brought to you by Greta Bar. I love that he dug that out, though, because the alternative is poor Italy getting smoked time and again.
Yeah.
In front of their own people. Greta, great spot for all the games home and away. We will be there for Canucks Army viewing parties throughout the season. Minutes from the arena, steps from the stadium, the street food menu, the smash burger, outstanding, and the arcade. You got to play in the arcade. Weekly drink specials at Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. Rob Wiliams is going to join us. We also talk about the absolute stunning news from the world of football that Bill Belichick and his 8 Super Bowl rings are going to give it the old college try down at North Carolina. That's all coming up on the program. Time now for our Bet365 Bets of the Day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365, Sekeres & Price partner here. So I picked a look forward bet yesterday. I'm on the Rams tonight for Thursday Night Football. Mm-hmm. You had the honor, so please fire away.
Bet365 doesn't refresh quite quick enough, I don't think, to accommodate for a Miller return. Run.
It's just refreshed. I'm taking another look.
It's still there. I refreshed too. It's still there.
Okay.
Run, don't walk to the money line. Do the Canucks finally get that emotional boost? They are certainly a better team with JT Miller in the lineup. Plus 150 right now for the Canucks at home. I know that doesn't mean much for this team, but again, correction should be there. Plus 150 is pretty good for a home side.
Brock Besser as his center back, and JT Miller, who as of this moment is not on the props board just yet, but check back later towards game time.
Yeah.
It's Brock's 500th game, and he's better value than normal to be an anytime goal scorer at plus 240. Open an account with Bet365 today. I bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Rob Wiliams coming up next.
I'll be honest, I don't get to many games anymore, whether it be at the arena or the stadium. Ticket availability cost, it's a bit of an issue these days. So I prefer to go where there's atmosphere and I know I can get in. Greta Bar YVR. Soak up all the atmosphere with your fellow fans and enjoy a great night with a great street food menu. I prefer the poutine. Weekly drink specials as well at Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova. And we'll be having our viewing parties there all season long as well. Your pregame, your postgame, it's at Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin.
Sekeres & Price from the historic Wall Center. Welcome in Rob Wiliams, the editor at large of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports Vertical, and Rob the Hockey Guy on Twitter. How are you?
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Good.
Do you have the holiday spirit yet, Rob?
You know what? We put up our Christmas tree earlier than ever. When I say we, my wife.
Chelsea put up the Christmas
tree.
tree.
Chelsea put up the Christmas tree. We had it up like mid-November, which is unheard of at our place. But so yeah, a little bit.
We are a mid-November Christmas tree family as well. And so far it's still standing with the 2 cats, so all things are good. We typically leave ours up till, I don't know, March, some years April. Don't tell Jeff. I know he's big on Boxing Day, taking it all down. Okay. We'll start with the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question and then pivot to tickets at Rogers Arena. Have you been entertained by the Canucks this season, Rob?
I have when they've been on the road. I think that's the problem is they've got 4 wins in 14 games at home this season. They're the 4th worst home team in the NHL. And you look at the teams below them, like Buffalo, Anaheim, Chicago. Like these are terrible teams. So it's been a weird year that way because they've been such a good road team. But for the home fans, like they haven't had those. I think you get those great moments when you do it at home, when you get the reaction of players when the crowd's going wild. And we've seen, those have been few and far between for the Canucks this season. And I was in the press box on Tuesday, and they're trailing in the 3rd period, and I'm going. I think I leaned over to Farhan Lolji next to me, and I said, like, oh God, I don't want to have another post game where the questions are just like, why, what is it about, playing at home? Like, why haven't you been able to win at home? Because it's just like, it's been like that for too many times this season, which is unfortunate.
It's
so you're voting periodically. It's yes, no, periodically. You're voting periodically.
Well, compared to last year, they're nowhere near what they were last year. I mean, that was such an unreal year last year. Remember what a dream start they had, and how exciting all the goals.
But all these discussions were happening in February, though. Remember?
This time last year was
glorious.
It was incredible.
But by the end of February, we're like, why are they so boring all of a sudden? So. So, like, do you buy in that it's personnel related? Because he was playing like this last year, and they had different personnel. Is it still just not the right personnel for Rick Tocchet to have his cake and eat it too? That is defensively and offensively.
Well, I mean, I would like to see the full team kind of put together and see what they look like there. I mean, what the elephant in the room is the defense, right? Like that defense core is not good enough. Particularly with Hronek out, but they're missing probably one for sure, maybe 2 defensemen to be in kind of that, like they didn't really have a bona fide number 3. Maybe you had a number 4 on the team last year, arguably Myers or Susie or Cole or Zadorov at different points, but they had those 4 guys that kind of worked where they didn't have to lean on any one of them too much, whereas this season it's all relying on Susie and Myers because that third pair is just such a drop off from what they had last season. So what does this team look like with more capable defensemen, guys that can break the puck out of their zone more reliably? What do they look like there? Because the way it's gone this season, it's the Canucks. There's the Canucks when Quinn Hughes is on the ice, and then there's the Canucks with Quinn Hughes off the ice, and it's a drastic difference. And getting back to like, are you not entertained? Guys, Quinn Hughes wasn't the focus really of much chatter after last game. I thought he was absolutely sensational. Like he's just
crazy.
We're almost
take him for granted, Rob.
Yeah, we're starting to take him for granted, maybe perhaps, but he is like he took a huge step. Obviously, last season winning the Norris Trophy, he's taken another step. Like he's better than he was last year. And that's incredible, incredible thing to say.
And we need your help on this because this one has taken to tweeting #Hughes for Heart, and I think that's something that we need to get behind because of the lack of exposure he gets. with Eastern media and fans, given how late many of the Canucks games start. Like we spent the last couple of weeks talking to some of our regular guests about, do you think you'll get consideration? And not many are saying yes, and a lot of it say it's an exposure problem. That he's got a time zone problem as much as anything. But, when you talk about a judged most valuable to their team, as the NHL's Hart Trophy language specifies, my God, it is difficult to see anyone being more valuable to their team than Quinn Hughes is to the Vancouver Canucks. Not that voters have gone by that criteria, though. Therein lies the problem. We have turned most valuable into most outstanding, with many voters looking at who had the best season, which I can understand in some regards, because a judge most valuable to his team, it punishes players who are surrounded by good teammates. And for me, at least, it artificially inflates the candidacy of those who are not.
Yes and no.
Because I always use the example of Roberto Luongo in Florida.
Yeah.
When Roberto was in Florida, frankly, by the strict definition of the Hart Trophy, he should have been on every ballot, because it was Roberto stopping 30, 40 shots every night and keeping Florida in games, because they didn't have much offensive firepower or great players in his.
But you think about a star-studded forward set like in Colorado, and yet there's so much statistical evidence that shows what Nathan MacKinnon does to that team when he is on the ice versus a Makar or even a Rantanen and all that sort of, like, MacKinnon elevates everybody. So you can still make the arguments, I think, on star-studded and loaded teams. And I also don't buy guys that they've got the Norris Trophy. That's the forwards have got the Pearson, they've got the Art Ross. Like, there's alternative forward trophies as well. I think everybody should be into the pool for the Hart.
Don't you guys think that defensemen are just kind of overlooked just in general for the Hart? Like, how often does a defenseman win the Hart Trophy? Like, you have to, like, do everything and then some, and it has to maybe be a down year for, like, scoring forwards for a defenseman to win the Hart Trophy. When you think about it, like, especially if you're talking about, like, most valuable to your team, a defenseman that plays big minutes like Quinn Hughes does, there's very few forwards can affect the game like a defenseman, an all situations defenseman can. And, we probably should be giving the Hart Trophy to defensemen more regularly than we do. And I mean, you can say the same thing maybe to even more about goaltenders, where they, you got a great goaltender, that affects the game so much. I do think goaltending is different. Like, it's really hard to compare a goalie and compare a skater, but I do think that defensemen should get more consideration for the Hart Trophy probably every season.
Erik Karlsson's 100-point season got him 15th in Hart Trophy.
Well, to answer your question, do we overlook defensemen? Yes, because everybody involved in this conversation has seen precisely one defenseman win the Hart Trophy. That was Chris Pronger in 2000, because none of us go back to 1972. And Bobby Orr, the last goaltender to win it, Jose Teodoro, the Montreal Canadiens in 01-02. That was kind of a contested, controversial result. Dominic Hasek won 2, and rightfully so. He was the best player in the league, particularly in the dead puck era. Like, you not only had to get through the Sabres trap, but you had to get through Dominic Hasek, and that had, for my money at least, he contributed to more victories than just about anyone else. Let me ask you on the entertainment value at Rogers Arena. How are you feeling about Dump and Chase hockey and Rick Tocchet hockey right now? Rob, how do you think the market feels about it?
Yeah, I mean, I still think the shine is still very much on Rick Tocchet. I think he's the fan base loves him. The media loves him as well, despite the discussion in the last couple days here in the market. No, I mean, I think that we saw fire wagon hockey under Bruce Boudreau, where there was no attention to defense. That was infuriating to watch, as far as I'm concerned. No, I think the system that Rick Tocchet has them playing, I don't think is the problem. I think they need, as we were mentioning before, I think they need to improve their defense, have some better puck movers, and they need, Elias Pettersson should be able to produce in this system like other players are, and he is, he's scoring more, of course, of late. But I think there is another level that he can get to, and I don't think that that the system is to blame for Pettersson.
Okay.
Just stop talking about PD, please.
What did he have for breakfast, Rob?
We're always asking.
What did he have for breakfast today? Can you get Noah on this beat, please? Okay. Rob, let's talk tickets. And actually, in response to our poll question today, got a note from Trevor who says, I'm really curious what ticket sales are like compared to expectations. Like, yeah, they've been ass at home, but prices are absurd also. We're part of the student program. We've been offered cheap tickets to every home game except for one, lower bowl for under $100. What's going on there on the ticket market at Rogers Arena for Canucks games?
Yeah, I snapped a photo 5 minutes into Tuesday's game and tossed it on Twitter with captioned it something to the effect of there's a lot of maroon in the crowd tonight, and there really was. Particularly behind, I would say the area that you always see, the most sparsely populated, I would say, for Canucks games when there are empty seats, is that lower bowl behind the net on the side that the Canucks shoot once at. That's usually the part that's very sparsely filled. And there were lots and lots of empty seats. Like there were some rows where there was like two people in the row. Like there was a ton of empty seats. I think you're seeing right now, I think some people responded to that as like that I'm trying to make Canucks fans look bad or something like that. Like for me, if there's empty seats, like this city loves this team. They're right into this team. If you're seeing empty seats, I think it's a result of the ticket prices being jacked up over the summer. Like they went way, way up, so high, in fact, that it actually appeared that the Canucks lowered ticket prices. Remember, we were talking about that. They lowered the ticket prices kind of heading into the season, from what they were charging for single game buyers over the summer. So I think that's definitely at play. Like when we looked at the prices in the summer, you could not buy a single game ticket for under $100. I had a look this morning. You can buy a ticket to tonight's game on the resale market for $67. I had a friend tell me that he saw tickets for $50 for Tuesday's game. So, I think you can see a little bit on the resale market that the ticket prices start to drop. You can see, I don't know how they feel, like maybe it was some latecomers to last game, but or maybe these are these last minute student prices where, you're getting people coming into the game late. I'm not sure what it is, but it definitely feels when you look in the crowd that there are a few more empty seats than you would expect after a great season last year.
Yeah, and they're advertising tickets available for just about every game, so that's a
I'm on the site right now. There's a lot of blue on Ticketmaster. The blue dots are available.
The
tickets.
one thing I'll say is we're always taught don't start looking at attendance until you're a significant way into the game, because there are late arrivals, and we know this is Vancouver, and there are going to be late arrivals. So
But these days, this day and age, if you can get into an NHL game for under $100, you're doing well.
No, that's it.
You're doing well.
The other thing that I think we need to be a little bit careful with, I do think Rob hits on the most salient point in terms of how these tickets are priced. But I think there are other factors at play as well, including economic factors. Yep. The other thing is, and our old friend Big Daddy Pratt used to talk about this, people now invest in home theaters or home AV setups that are extraordinary. My brother said it to me the other day, he loves Lumen. He loves going down to Seahawks games. We talked about going to the one on the 23rd against Minnesota, and he said to me, not our team. And, to sit for 3.5 hours in the pouring rain potentially. Obviously, Rogers Arena, you don't sit in the pouring rain, but just extracting that person from their home setup with all the money that they've put in there, where the beer is cheap, where the bathroom's nearby, where the screen is loud and the sound is surround. That's becoming increasingly difficult for sports operators.
Not going anywhere is also way easier than going somewhere.
It's way easier. And the other thing is, when people are going places now, they want it to be experiential. Like, they want an experience, and there are 41 of these, right? A lot of them are quite similar. Rob, pick up. You think other things are involved here, and did we miss anything?
Yeah, I mean, you could say this. You could say that for many years now, where people like to stay at home, but people like going places. They want to, they want to be sitting in the arena and snap a picture and post on Instagram to brag to their friends that they're at the hockey game. I think people definitely want to go out and want to have that feeling that you get when you're at a sporting event. I don't think that that's necessarily going away. I think to me, it's the prices. It's absolutely the prices, and you can't just jack up the prices to whatever number you see fit and just continue to have tickets fly off the shelves. Now, it should also be said, guys, like I had a look at the final attendance numbers. I don't know what, if there's any auditing on these numbers, but they do always seem like, okay, well, geez, wow, it's like 99% filled at Rogers Arena yet again. Maybe the tickets were distributed or sold and people didn't show up for their seats. Strikes me as a little bit unusual. It doesn't seem to add up in my mind from just the eye test, from what I see in the crowd versus what you see on the game sheet afterwards.
It is remarkable when you go on to Ticketmaster for tonight's game. So there's a ton of blue, which is Ticketmaster available tickets. And the red, of course, is the resell market on Ticketmaster. You can resell your ticket on. I mean, there's a lot of tickets available. So there's a lot of people that have bought tickets for this game that aren't necessarily committed to going to this game. And this isn't Taylor Swift. Like, nobody's putting their tickets back for sale on Ticketmaster expecting to make a ton of money here. There's 41 dates from which to sell. So it just, I look at this map, Rob, and I see a market that isn't demanding to go to these games right now.
Yeah, and the home record's part of it, right? Like, there just hasn't been that many good times at Rogers Arena this season. Like, if again, like we were talking about before, if you're missing those moments, you're missing that energy, you're missing that vibe of people saying like, geez, that last night's game, it was unbelievable. Yeah. I think that it makes the regular season a little bit more blasé, and people are maybe not a little slower to maybe jump on the bandwagon.
That anecdotal word of mouth of, we went to the Canucks game the other day, it was amazing. When without that happening and kind of going viral, it reduces the excitement.
The other thing I will say is they got to the playoffs last year for the first time in 9 years at home, remember, because of the playoff bubble that nobody got to experience here on the ground. I think that has, for starters, that completely changed the equation heading into the season, because I would argue that there was more sort of excitement and electricity going into some of those seasons in the intervening 9 years when people were fueled with hope and optimism. Some would argue mistakenly. Well, as it turned out, mistakenly. But this year I sensed an overwhelming, we're a good team now. Can we start the playoffs already vibe? And I do wonder, whether people are waiting to shoot their shot come the Stanley Cup playoffs and don't necessarily have the same enthusiasm and gusto
maybe
for early season, regular season hockey. We shall see. Rob, before we leave you here, I want to chit-chat about Rick Tocchet in the media landscape here. Heard Thomas Drance's rant about how this is the softest media environment that any Canucks team has ever had to endure. I agree wholeheartedly when he's talking about traditional media. There is this whole social media phenomenon which I think also has to be considered into the equation. For me, and I think for coaches, it's simple. Just don't go on social
Traditional media you can't avoid, because they are there. If they attend, they are there.
But the social media side of things,
that's voluntary.
Well, it is voluntary, except for these young kids, Blake, for whom this is life, right? Like you do this, you do that, you check your phone, Instagram, and all your social media apps. Like, yeah, for me, just if you're a player who feels like the market, the fan base, the media is being too harsh on you, if that gets you down, if that affects your mental health, your outlook, your whatever, it's as simple as just don't go on those apps. And yet I wonder if that's easier said than done with some of these younger players who grew up in this generation. Going on Instagram is as normal and routine for them as turning on the television or radio would have been for
There
us.
are certain things that you commit to when you're a professional hockey player. You don't get to go to McDonald's every day. And so guess what? They don't go to McDonald's every day like some teens do. There are things that you just can't do. One of those things is be a complete addict to social media, because it'll have the same effect as going to McDonald's every day, effectively.
Rob, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem, I totally agree. Like the Drance's rant was awesome, and I agree in a lot of respects. Like, it's, you've got players that, I'm not sure how much fans know, I guess, about how it works after a game. It used to be like when I first started going, as media to Canucks games, you'd go into the room after a game and there'd be tons of players in there. Like most of the players, they're still getting their they're still getting their gear off and that sort of thing.
16 of 23 players would be in the room, yes.
And you could walk up to anyone you like, and typically what would happen is everyone crowds around Henrik Sedin, the captain, after every single game, and he speaks, and then people filter off and go to different players, and you can kind of just go around to whoever you want to now. The environment today is quite different. When I walked into the room on Tuesday, there's one player in the room. It's Thatcher Demko, and he's standing at the front, and he's ready to answer questions to a giant media horde. So everyone asks one player all the questions, and then Demko leaves, and then another player comes in, and you typically get 3 players, sometimes 4 players after a game. That's a typical environment after a game now. So it's quite different than what it used to be. So in effect, you have some players that, I mean, I don't know if I've ever talked to Philip Hronek or seen him in person.
I know,
and that just shows,
it's staggering.
That's the extreme example, right? Like where you don't actually have to face the media for days, weeks at a time for some players. Now the star players do get, they have to come out and do that, but that's, it's quite a different environment. And of course, as Drance pointed out, on the road, there's very few outlets now that send their reporters on the road. So there's not the questions that you get after half of your home games. But the flip side of all of this is social media. And even if you stay off social media, maybe your buddy is sending you something, you hear about it from someone. Did you hear about this person said that or whatever? So I think that in some ways you're kind of always in the public eye. There's, go back to the 90s, there was one insider, right? It was Bob McKenzie. Now, how many insiders do we have that are breaking things, and they go viral, right? So it's quite a bit different, I think, than how it used to be.
Well, and I'll say this: the NHL and its member clubs don't understand marketing. They particularly don't understand personality-driven marketing, which is where the NBA has so excelled for decades, and marketing in the digital age as well. So, for me, this sport has plateaued in terms of its popularity in the United States and Canada. It's never going to get any bigger without a significant
Every other league is trying to have more exposure. The NHL is trying to have less.
Exactly. And it's not going to change until you have a new commissioner who starts talking to these teams in a different manner. Gary wants to govern at large, and I get it, But I think if you're going to take the next step, you're going to have a stronger-willed commissioner when it comes to getting some of these teams and players out of their comfort zone and understanding that it's the players and personalities that are your best asset when marketing and communicating to a greater public at large. Rob, great stuff. Thank you for the time, sir. We'll catch up next week.
Sounds great.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
So, Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, where you turn your game night into a game weekend. Book your stay at the Wall with the exclusive Harrison Price rate. Call the hotel, 604-331-1000. Use our name, some blackout date supply, based on availability. You can text us, 778-402-9680. Email live at harrisonprice.com. It all goes to the Great Clips inbox. We're going to have a To the People We Go segment on Friday's show, brought to you by Great Clips.
You got a message.
Great Clips.
It's going to be great.
Thank you. Shout out to Glenn in Southeast Asia.
Yeah. What's his voice heard?
Sorry we were a little tardy in getting back to you, Glenn.
I'm literally checking the inbox, though, and I see nothing from Glenn, so I don't know where he's emailing.
Okay. Anyways,
tell them the number again to text.
778-402-9680. Email live at harrisonprice.com.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Text is really the best, though. We'll see it quicker. Or social.
I got to say, I am gobsmacked that Bill Belichick is the new head coach at a basketball school.
I can't believe it.
And don't get me wrong, Lawrence Taylor, Julius Peppers, there have been some fine football players at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. But that's Michael Jordan's school.
Yeah.
That's Dean Smith's school. That's Tobacco Road, where, basketball is king.
Curtis Rourke hasn't turned Indiana into a football school. No, it's a basketball school.
Well,
so they can have spikes in their other programs, but they are generally what they are.
Kentucky, Indiana, North Carolina, Duke, whatever success they may have in football, still basketball schools.
Mm-hmm.
There is a good story by Seth Wickersham on ESPN about why this all transpired. And basically, it's Belichick's FU to the NFL. It became clear to Bill and his cadre of most trusted assistants, Michael Lombardi, who's joining him at Carolina, guys like Josh McDaniels, who, of course, has been a head coach in the league, Matt Patricia. They would hold weekly Zooms, and it became apparent that they all agreed the Chicago Bears was the best job. But all the feeling in Chicago is that they want to go out and get a offensive-minded head coach / play caller, the Andy Reid model, if you will, for young quarterback Caleb Williams. And so, as they went through it, they didn't necessarily see an NFL opening. Of course, Belichick only interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons last year after being dismissed from the Patriots. And I think we can now say he was dismissed, even though it was positioned as a mutual, kind of like the Trevor Linden thing. And, everybody seemed to think the New York Giants, from whence he's came, he's got reverence for that organization, won 2 Super Bowls there as a defensive coordinator. The Mara family and the Tisch family still own that franchise, so he'd have a comfort level there. But lest we forget, Brian Daboll is of the Bill Belichick coaching tree. And so Bill thinks, according to this story, that Daboll should keep his job even after a dreadful season for Big Blue. So
is he going to get the entire band back together? Is the question. There's different opinions on who's going to leave whatever jobs they've got right now.
Well, McDaniels, I think McDaniels and Patricia out right now would be your leaders for offensive and defensive coordinator. The other thing that we should note here, and this was the case last year, if you're hiring Bill Belichick, you're hiring the Patriots way, you really do have to give him full control of your football operation. I know Belichick said, I can work with personnel guys, but that has not been the formula. Like these reports of Bill delivering the regents and athletic department at North Carolina a 400-page manifesto, like a Bible basically of how he goes about doing business, I think says it all. That it was going to be difficult for a team like Atlanta, who had empowered Rich McKay, an executive, to bring in a coach and then just say, okay, work in conjunction with this head coach. You're both of equal footing, or reports to this executive on the personnel side. And a lot of teams were rightfully given pause by Belichick's more recent draft record. When he had Tom Dimitroff running his college drafts way back when, and for those who don't know, Thomas spent years growing up here in Hamilton. His dad was a longtime CFL coach, player as well, with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. But when Thomas Dimitroff was running his drafts way back when, and Dimitroff went on to be the GM of the Falcons, they were great, like extraordinary, like incredible success, multi-round success. It fueled 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. The first 3 Super Bowls, they would of course go on to win 6. So, but more recently hasn't been that way. So,
and you wonder if the game has passed them by a little bit, if some of their approaches are as effective. But the pro game and the college game, of course, are 2 different games too, Matt. And their ability to wrap their head around that is going to be interesting to watch as well.
Well, when you say the game has passed them by, certainly not schematically, right? Like we are talking about a certified football genius, one of the smartest people who has ever studied.
And pretty innovative schematically, too.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
You remember that year with Baltimore and the way he was with the formations and
throwing eligibles.
And John Harbaugh is throwing a tantrum on the sideline because he doesn't understand the rule. But passing them by in terms of interpersonal relations.
And the power
He's not
structure,
warm.
the power dynamic of player to coach now.
He's not cuddly. I think a lot of owners sat there and went, okay, is he going to manage up, or am I just basically going to be a distraction, an unwelcome visitor in my own franchise?
A billion-dollar servant.
Yeah, exactly. You cut the checks. You do nothing else, okay? Enjoy the games from the luxury suite. I'll talk to you once a week.
Yeah.
But that has led to speculation, Blake, that Robert Kraft poisoned the well with his fellow owners on Belichick. Did not end well in New England, and let's face it, there's a pretty healthy ego there with Robert Kraft. Go Google his Hall of Fame quest, which will be unsuccessful again this year. So did Kraft go around telling owners, look, you don't understand what you're bargaining for if you hire Bill Belichick? Anyways, look, I look forward to the day when Bill Belichick is completely free of coaching, when he doesn't have to be political in the least, because I would really like to hear his side of the story unfiltered on all of this.
I don't know that I would trust that story when it's told.
Well, probably not. Hey, well, would you trust it any more than the Dynasty documentary, which seemed to put Robert Kraft as like in the center of all this winning? Bill Belichick's now going to have to deal with name, image, and licensing money, which means he is going to have to cozy up and charm boosters with big wallets to donate to Carolina's NIL fund. He's going to have to deal with kids hitting the transfer portal because they didn't get enough snaps. There was a story yesterday in Florida, Blake. A linebacker told the university, I need $45,000 a month. I need to play on third downs, and I need my reps up by X% or I'm transferring. And Florida went like, okay, see ya. But that's what these kids have now. That's the power they have been handed. Because there's another school out there that is offering $45,000 and the ability to play on third down.
I'm all for the money, but the actual usage and
no, I know.
If you're good, you'll play on third downs. If you're not, you
exactly.
won't.
And he's going to have to go into the homes of 17-year-old kids and sit there and charm the parents.
And tell them that their 17-year-old kid is the best player he's seen.
Well, and tell them that he's going to take care of them and be their dad. Like, I have
super
trouble with all
warm.
this.
I'm super warm. It will be like a family.
I will treat your son like my son. Okay.
That's the fear.
Look, put it this way. I am interested to see how he does there. And if he does win there, wow, he's going to get another NFL shot. So for everyone who's saying he has sacrificed the opportunity to break Don Shula's NFL wins record, he's 14 shy, I'm not sure that script is completely written out. I can understand why you would say that. But, I mean, I think if Bill Belichick goes out there and wins 10 games 2 straight years at Carolina, there will be an NFL team going, how the hell was this guy not hired in our league? He's the greatest who's ever done it. Period.
The schedules were released yesterday, the day before, and the meme going around was, we're on to TCU.
We're on to TCU. More NFL off-field news here. There is a new 30 for 30 ESPN documentary coming up on the New York Sack Exchange, the terrific defensive line of the New York Jets in the late 70s to late 80s, which featured Mark Gastineau, one of the fine pass rushers in NFL history, one of the big characters in NFL history. We saw him briefly here with the BC Lions in 1990 as he was attempting a comeback to his career. At the time, he was dating Bridget Nielsen, the model and former Mrs. Sly Stallone. Well, Mark Gastineau held the single-season sack record in the NFL until 2002. You may remember Michael Strahan broke the record by sacking Brett Favre. Many say, and Favre has since acknowledged, that, naked bootleg, he came around, he saw Michael Strahan, went, I'm not getting out of this, and just fell down, gave himself up for a touch sack that allowed Strahan to break Gastineau's record. Well, that hasn't sat very well for the last 20 years with Mark Gastineau.
Did not age well inside of him, no.
And there was a clip released yesterday from this documentary where Mark Gastineau goes to a card show and confronts Brett Favre about giving himself up and surrendering that sack.
Which is completely unfair, and I will not defend Brett Favre pretty much for anything. But Favre gave a very thoughtful comment on that.
Did he ever?
Saying,
Did he ever?
You know what? I'm not thinking about your entire career in the moment that I've got a 300-pound guy bearing down on it. If it was a playoff game where I needed those yards, am I fighting harder to get past him? Yes. Mm-hmm. But none of that calculus is going through my head in that moment.
Yeah.
I went down easy, yes, because of the situation.
Right. He talked about squeezing some fun out of a regular season game. That it was a multi-tweet thread. And, Favre has his own troubles with embezzling money allegedly from Mississippi welfare recipients. He's got all sorts of issues. But this tweet was in particular important. I see now how being the sack king would elevate his value at card shows, strengthen his case for the Hall of Fame, increase his demand as a public speaker. I had no way of knowing that then. I realize now the potential financial implications because football is far more business oriented. But
I don't think you blame him for that moment with that retrofit.
And he went on to say that Gastineau belongs in Canton. So very gracious from number 4. From Brett there.
Bigger CFL signing in the early 90s, Gastineau or Manley?
Oh, my God. I was in Ottawa for Dexter Manley.
Both of them were a big deal.
Well, they were both a really big deal, and both of them were gigantic flops.
Yeah, they were.
And speaking of personality and being a character of the wild side of the gate, Dexter Manley.
Ottawa wasn't his only stop. What other team did he play for? Yeah, good call.
Well,
good call.
The Gleibermans. I'll go Gastineau.
Yeah.
The Seattle Mariners are hunting first baseman. Ryan Divish thinks Carlos Santana is primed for another bid with the M's. This is, of course, the baseball player, not the musician. Carlos Santana he'll be 39, although still a pretty good defender, and still has a little pop in his bat.
23 last year.
23 home runs for me. And it's funny because Minnesota had a bunch of young positional pieces last year that could have easily taken that first base job and rendered Santana a pinch hitter / backup / DH, and Santana did not go quietly into that night. So he's a free agent. They're talking to him. Divish makes it sound like that's a very good bet. There's also reports they're pursuing Christian Walker in Arizona, who has been awfully good for 3 straight years now, including a 33 home run, 103 RBI season as the Diamondbacks went to the World Series in 2023. Now, he was very much a late bloomer, did not become a Major League Baseball regular until like 29 years old, so he'll be 34 at the start of the season. And then most of the insiders are now of the opinion that it is going to be a when, not if, the M's trade Luis Castillo, their fine starting pitcher. He does have a no-trade clause, so the M's are going to have to work with him. But it's a good way of getting money off the books and filling some of the holes in the lineup. So I think you're going to see Castillo move on. There's talk.
Might be a
Boston.
step back season for the Mariners. This is right before they set themselves up for the winning season.
Well, they're apparently going to put the huge push on Sasaki with Ichiro and everything. And like M's fans are saying, if we can't land a Japanese free agent of all people, what chance do we have to compete with these other teams? Anyways, there's talk Castillo to Boston potentially for a young hitter. You're going to have to help me out on this one, partner, because you're the soccer guy. So the World Cup in 2030 is going to Portugal, Spain, and Morocco.
Mostly.
Which makes a lot of sense. We see this here with Canada, United States, and Mexico hosting 2026. It is a big, expensive production. Ask Brazil about that. So, spreading that out. Yeah.
And geographically.
And look, 3 terrific soccer-playing nations, right? Love it.
And those stadiums will not be any farther apart than Vancouver and Toronto.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. So love it. Love the fact that it's going to be a multi-state, multicultural World Cup. But alas, it's not that simple.
Well, yeah, they're going to start the World Cup in Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay.
Of course.
So 6 countries involved. It's the centenary edition of the World Cup, and they want to go back to where it all started. So it's a nod to that. But
so
it's only
there's going to be
each,
group
maybe?
stage games in the South American countries, and then we're going to pick up and move to Europe and North Africa for the remainder of the group stage.
What I'm guessing is that there will be 1 or 2 groups that open up the first couple of days of the World Cup there, and then they move it over.
Does it stand to reason that the host, like if Argentina's going to make the World Cup, that they would start at home and then move Uruguay? But that would be an advantage competitively, no?
Yeah.
But they're willing to
go down that road. Here's the thing. By agreeing to do this, and this is dovetailing into what I think you're about to bring up, is that qualifies as quote-unquote hosting. So that takes common ball off the map for further bidding. North America, CONCACAF just has the 2026 one. They're not eligible to bid as well for 2034. Europe and Africa both get taken off that list as well. Wouldn't you know it?
Oh, wow.
All you've got left is Asia and Oceania to bid.
Mm-hmm. I like New Zealand's chances there. I would really like to see a World Cup in Australia and New Zealand.
And they also gave them a month to come through with a bid.
Oh. Gosh, it sounds almost like it was rigged for a certain country.
Democracies generally don't get shit together for multi-billion-dollar events in 30 days. But you know who can? You know who can muster the funds pretty quickly? The PIF.
Saudi Arabia, 2034.
Yeah.
They've got more money than God or Allah. They have more money.
By the way, one other little sports tidbit. Summer McIntosh just smashed another world
Oh,
record.
did she really?
I mean, like sprinting, it's not like world records get set fairly regularly in swimming, but it's kind of cool for a Canadian to be slotted in a few times. Very cool.
Trivia, who won the first World Cup?
I want to say Uruguay.
You're correct. One would think Argentina is capable of hosting a World Cup on its own, no? I mean, it's a wealthier country than Brazil, isn't it?
I don't know the answers to all that.
Incredible soccer fandom there, existing stadium.
Oh, that part for sure.
All right. Yeah. Poll question results. Sorry, Mitsubishi poll question results for Wednesday. We asked you, is Rick Tocchet's coaching holding this team back? Yes or no? The people said.
People said no.
Correct. Percentage?
70.
73. And the comments were all over the map here.
Yeah.
Some people absolutely furious that we would ask. I understand that. I also understand how fans who are more attuned to the X's and O's and systems play were looking at the 27%. Basically, we're looking at the vote and how it went and said, we've got casual fans here. They need to look deeper. ICP, it plays a factor 100%. His Höglander hate is wild. He drives play and creates offense, and that's what we need. Brannström benching is so idiotic it hurts. But at the end of the day, the defense is trash and can't move the puck up ice. A lot of people cited personnel. Mike, prime Scotty Bowman couldn't help this blue line make a breakout pass. Until management fixes that, it's hard to put much blame on Tocchet. Kind of my position from yesterday. Sapster, his offensive philosophies are old and straight up bad. His defensive philosophies are fantastic. And the work he's done to improve the penalty kill, the team's work habits, and their resilience has been awesome. I just don't think Tocchet is the coach to unlock the team's full potential. And that is fair comment right now.
Except I'll give you one
because
example.
Many believe that this system can't win at the championship levels. I know Frank Corrado, Lawrence Gilman disagreed. We had a full hearty discussion on that yesterday. You were going to say?
A man by the name of Alain Vigneault once had a reputation for being a defensive-minded coach that couldn't coach offense.
Fair.
He would later go on to tell us, because I had no offense.
Yep.
Now, that's not the case per se for Rick Tocchet, but he's missing that critical first link for offense.
He is.
Outside
of Hughes and when Hronek's healthy.
Yeah.
Coach Jim, Rick is doing an amazing job. He's changed the culture completely. They're competing in the playoff race, even missing key parts to criticize him. I'm not sure I get it. They will work on creating offense once he's happy with their non-negotiables. Well done, Coach. And David says, I think it's evident that this management's preference for forward depth over defensemen, as shown in their time in Pittsburgh, is the bigger problem at hand. The roster and the management is holding Tocchet back, not the other way around. We had some really smart comments on this yesterday, and I got to think, I love going through threads of content we post and seeing that sort of intelligent analysis coming back from the followers and Canucks fans and, of course, audience members here. Errors and omissions, 2 from yesterday. Lawrence got Pettersson's salary wrong. He had him at 11.25. It's 11.6. And I said the Vancouver Whitecaps would lose a player. To San Diego in the expansion draft, and they did not. San Diego did not deem any of their exposed players worthy, so Tacoka is back, at least for now.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.